Hello, everyone. Welcome back to episode 76 of the Podcana podcast. This week, we're going to be discussing DLC Seattle. Be doing a recap of that event. I was not present, unfortunately, but these two fine gentlemen, Moyen and Brendan, were. Moyen had a very good day one, and we'll talk about his day two experience throughout the podcast. But before we jump into the headlines, the topics, I want to give a huge shout out to our sponsor for this episode, Heavy Play. Heavy Play are known for their incredible CURV card sleeves that have rounded corners at one end of the sleeve. So never again will you accidentally shuffle cards upside down into your deck. And also they have their EquipMag system that connects their Playmat, their Deckbox, and their Dicebox all together. So instead of rolling up your Playmat and trying to, run to your next table, they've got like a magnetic Playmat, magnetic Deckbox, magnetic Dicebox. Super great, really compact, great for, moving around events and stuff like that. So huge shout out to Heavy Play for sponsoring this episode. If you guys want to get some Heavy Play products for yourself, be sure to use code PODCANA at checkout and also use the link down below in the description. So
these are tailor-made for Lorcana players, because you know how many potatoes I see with the upside-down cards in their deck? By the way, I'm pretty sure, I don't know what the exact ruling is on that. I wouldn't be surprised if it's a game loss because it's marked cards. I mean, it's basically, I know you're not doing it cheap, but it's cheating. Anytime there's a card that would be back, that is completely cheating because you can see it from the side. You can see it from every angle.
A very clear example is I can't really show it off on camera, but I had a deck sleeved up here, and I instantly just looked at the deck. I could see there was one card in the middle. Instantly tell it was upside down. And if people purposely put cards upside down that they know, they know when they're about to draw them and stuff like that. So,
yeah. The thing about purposely and not purposely,
there's
similar-ish punishments.
Yeah.
Purposely, you will get DQ'd if they actually think you're doing it on purpose, but both, I think, would probably result in a game loss. Be very surprised if it didn't.
Yeah. So, as I said, headlines, we're going to be talking about DLC Seattle. We're going to be talking about the NA versus EU event that's going to be taking place at the start of set 6. So myself and Moyen are going to start practicing for that once we have all of the cards. And then what we're also going to be talking about the LCQ info for European Championships. There's been a couple of delays and people aren't happy. They aren't happy at all. So we'll be discussing that. We'll also be discussing the format for LCQ. We'll be picking Brendan's brain on his thoughts of this compared to some other TCGs he's played in the past. But before that, of course, we have our spilled ink section. This is our listener question section. If you guys want to have your questions read out in next week's episode of the podcast, be sure to pop a comment down below. So the first one is from Ludini7. They say, came straight here after day one of Seattle. Moyen with the 6 wins, 0 losses, and 3 ties. Amazing work. Did you guys see who finished first in Swiss Ruby Sapphire 72 card list? I can already tell Moyen is bubbling inside. What are your thoughts on this?
You hear of this, it was Hamza again, you hear of this crazy NA guy that keeps topping with 72 cards. So funny story is, round 8, if I double split, I'm in, but I played for seeding, I win. So of course, if I splitting last round, I'm either seed 1, 2, or 3. So there wasn't too much upside I'm playing. There wasn't too much downside, even if I lose, I'm like top 8 seed. But of course I split, and only then my opponent tells me he's the one that's playing 72 cards. And now on my resume I have to admit I split with someone that was playing 72 cards. So I'm not very happy about that. If I knew that was them, I probably would just play out of principle. But just caught me by surprise.
What an unusual trend in the Lorcana community. And then we always get these comments, and I know a lot of it's meme-based, but I wonder if people actually have the results-based thinking to believe that this is somehow more mathematically correct than it was before because of a result. I don't know. The fact that people keep doing it is very bizarre to me. Maybe it kind of speaks to a little bit to the, I guess, consistency of Lorcana when it comes to the mulligan and this idea of these replacement level cards that can be used as both resources and be used as cards that you play on board. Just gives you a lot of agency over the game, so maybe you just have what are very good players winning despite that aren't getting as much of an edge in deck building. But running over the 60 card count is just such a bizarre phenomenon to me. Honestly, 72, I know it's probably worse than 61, but 61 is like, oh god, that is disgusting to me. 61 I immediately lose all respect, because 72, you're a man or woman of principle, like you're like, I'm committed to being a potato. But 61, you're just indecisive. You're like an amoeba. Like it's just disgusting to me.
So I talked to my opponent. They were like, I mean, it's the main argument that always comes up is, okay, I want more threat density in red blue, right? The mulligan's still very consistent, and I just don't think I need more threat density. I've never decked out against a non-wheel deck, and even against a wheel deck it comes up extremely rarely. But at least they're doing it purposefully. I think they're still wrong, but at least it's not because they couldn't decide what card to cut.
Yeah.
61 card Andes.
Yeah. The next comment is from Tradus. They say, Brendan had a great take on last week's question, distinguishing that it is probably better to play more to get that top seeding, but also saying that emotionally wanting to maybe just draw it out and take the pressure off. Also, what a professional, perfectly navigating the hard questions with the safety statements. Brendan also has a good point about the limited format, which I think I heard addressed how they didn't design it with limited in mind, because they were essentially a two-man team, but they were working on it. But as of now, it's everyone just playing good stuff soup. It was cool seeing you guys 2 out of 3 in person. Got to backseat a game of Moyen piloting Spessie's brooms deck. Oh god. Also shook Brendan's hand. Oh, a rare Brendan handshake from this event. We were just talking that Brendan was extremely cautious when not when interacting with people, but he was saying when he shook people's hands, he was running to the bathroom and he was washing his hands, because we had some NA plaguing happening. Yeah.
Got Mr. Moyen over there. He's sick. Just a funny anecdote from the weekend. I played it super safe, washed my hands every time, Purell. Mostly did elbows. So if you got a handshake out of me, you're one of the special ones. But all of that to get on a 3-hour flight home, and the language I would like to use for this person, the person next to me in the middle seat is sick as a fucking dog. I was so angry. Luckily I didn't get anything, but just there's nothing more. There's almost there. I wouldn't say no. There's nothing, but there is very few things in this life that are more objectively immoral to me than openly infecting other people with illness for your own convenience. You have to be such a fucking piece of shit. I don't. It really frustrates me. So I had to sit next to this person, face against the airplane thing with my face here, and just try to not breathe.
Man. Yeah, they also say, also the highlight was being able to play against the German developer, Tim, and just watching play his decks with new cards in them. Yeah, I heard that Tim brought some set 6 stuff, which is kind of cool. But the most important message left in this comment is at the end. They say, also looking into that bizarre game. Love the comment saying Crypt driving the devs crazy with broken things. So,
yeah.
A quick...
I think it's overhyped, right? It's not that good.
Quick tangent. We've all been bizarring like crazy this week. Honestly, it's been really, really fun. If you guys haven't checked out the game, I highly recommend it. It's been taking up a lot of our time.
Affiliate code's going to be in the comment this time.
Yeah, I think we need to give... Moyen, do you have an affiliate
code?
Moyen
doesn't have one, bro, because he didn't even pay for the game. Doesn't support indie developers over there. He's got a free code.
Free code gamer over here.
Free code gamer. Yeah, the bazaar is pretty good.
There was a lot in that comment.
Yes, there was.
I had the same feeling. On the pod, I think what we've discussed was like 5-0 we play, 5-0-1 we play, 5-0-2 maybe it's on the edge, and then like maybe on the final round we probably just split. So I was in the exact situation. 5-0-2, if I double split, I'm in. Probably if my tiebreaker is okay, the seed's not the worst. And while we've discussed the EV is much better on playing it out for anyone that's like has any respect for themselves, like the total EV, right? There's a lot more variance in it because you're not guaranteed to make top card anymore. But I still felt the pressure. I was like, do I actually play? in my only North American event, I have Top Guard guaranteed. Do I actually play for that? In the end, I played and I won, which gave me 3rd seed in the end, and I was super happy about that. I ended up getting not really the matchup I wanted, but that wasn't the issue. I was super happy with C3. C3 actually meant that if I won my top 64 match, I would have already qualified, just because of the pass downs. So I was
really?
1 game away from qualifying.
There was that many pass downs?
I mean, on C3, I think the only seeds that were in front of me, lost or won more than me. So I would have been 17th. And yeah, so in the end, I guess I could have left as far as for the Seattle recap. I think this is probably a good moment. I think this is the worst tournament I've played all year. I'm kind of embarrassed with my play. Made at least 1.5 simple mistakes during the tournament. Made another one that, if I don't do it, I'm in a very good position game 3 to qualify and get at least top 32. And I made another big mistake that might have cost me the game. So yeah, of course I'm still happy with the result, right? It's a good result, but at the end of the day, I think with the deck that I brought, with how the draws and matchup, everything was lining up, there's no excuse for me to not make it further. But I have to just live with it and deal with it, because this was a big blow to me. It's not the events where I do where I get a bad result. It's kind of the events where you do worse than you maybe feel like you could have. Those are the ones that really hurt.
Yeah.
I mean, I have to kind of move on and look forward to Continentals, play my best there, but that was really, really tough.
For sure, yeah. We have a few more comments left. The next one is from Jonas Hesse 315. Do you guys think that the current meta decks will still be at the top during next set with some additions/changes here and there, obviously? So this is something that I discussed with Brendan last week, and I think I talked to you about it a little bit as well, Moyen. And I'm not going to go too deep into it, but it's the whole conversation of, we very much had a lot of the same meta decks in terms of color combinations, new cards coming out, new sets that are just added into this deck, added into that deck. Do you think, from what we've seen of set 6 so far, and I'm not going to lie, I haven't been deep diving and theory crafting and stuff like that, but do you think it's still going to remain the same, that Ruby Sapphire just gets more tools, or Ruby Amethyst gets more of this? I do think for the most part what I've seen is that I've seen more support for color combinations like Emerald Sapphire. I think that it has a lot of potential moving into set 6 and stuff like that. But do you guys feel confident that will start to happen, or are we kind of just gonna keep doing what we're gonna do?
I think less and less. The more the card pool expands, I think the less chance there is for some of these weird color combinations. And we talked about this in the last pod, what qualifies as weird. It's basically color combinations that do one thing well, I guess, and then they don't have coverage on some of the other aspects of what make a good deck. So it might have a lot of onboard removal, but doesn't have a lot of card draw, and doesn't have a lot of way to interact without playing characters to the board or something like that. So yeah, I think that these issues are core to the color, the sort of some of the ink identity, and ink identity and ink is also very important to making the game feel fun and making it feel like you can actually be creative with deck building. Restrictions are what sort of create cool deck building. Shout out to Lorcana Limited if you don't believe me, but yeah, I think in order to stop that from happening, there has to be something like a rotation, or they have to break the game design rules that they have constricting certain inks, both of which I think are bad, with the second one being much worse. I think that if they started breaking the rules that they have for what this ink can do and what it should do, it would make the game feel a bit samey. And you'd have most decks, at least if decks were not doing anything degenerate, like combo or hyper aggro, then they would kind of all trend towards the same style of like mid-range card draw attrition value gameplay, and your ink combination would not really have an identity. So I don't know. It's interesting. It's just kind of the way the game is designed right now, I think.
Yeah, I don't know. I think ink identity can be expanded upon. It's not this like set in stone thing. So yeah,
I think just to be clear, what I mean is like you couldn't. I think it would be a bad idea to give Sapphire bad idea to give like Ruby friends on the other side, like basically like a 1-to-1 derivative, or give them like a Popsicle Flaversham, like almost 1-to-1.
Yeah, no, I mean I think everything should still feel different, but I don't know. Like it's not like colors. There's just like a color should never get card draw.
Well, do you think that they should keep it in the box, which is where Ruby's card draw currently is, of like damage counter card draw, basically? Or banishing your own stuff. Isn't that the Ruby card draw? It's like Dinner Bell and things like that.
Yeah, but there's also the challenging in Ruby. So like
challenging.
Challenging.
Okay.
Yeah.
So a lot of onboard stuff. Onboard card draw.
Mm-hmm.
No, I mean I think there's room to expand upon. I don't think it has to always fulfill the same niche.
Yeah, but do you think it would be a bad idea if they gave like Ruby a song that did not require you to challenge or banish your own character that could draw cards?
No, I mean, so okay, let's say maybe Ruby should be board based. Maybe it could still be something like that requires you to have like a high strength character on board or something like that. But
yeah, so card draw in like a different sense, but like maybe more achievable than the self damage card. I can kind of see that. Like I can see decks that the like. So here's an example, right? Like imagine there's like a pirate card or whatever, and most of the builder and pirate stuff isn't that impressive or whatever, but this one specifically for this requirement is really, really good for card draw. Like I don't know, if you control one, I don't know, I'm just, if you control one pirate, you get to draw a certain amount of cards or whatever, and maybe this is good in some decks, maybe it's not, but like I like more limitations, but maybe less limited than what it is currently in terms of the
So I think it has to be significantly more powerful, because if you zoom out on, like, you take away this, like, if you zoom out on the fundamental aspect of that card draw and you compare it to other card draw, look at something like Friends on the Other Side. If you have a character in play, Exert, you play this card draw for free. You draw 2 cards. If the character is not in play, you can still play the card, and you still draw the cards. So then you go to the other best draw package in the game. It does require banishing something, but it's not a character. It's an item. And it's a low-cost item at that, so that's important as well, because it's not efficient to hit with item destruction. So when an opponent has a card, something like Be Prepared, it's not sort of 2-for-1ing you in the sense, getting like double value out of you by removing your card draw engine and your characters. Whereas with something like Ruby, it's relying on a character that's on board. So when someone interacts with your board, they kind of get double value, where it's not the case when you're banishing something like an item, because items can't traditionally be interacted with the same way characters can. And the opportunity cost of having cards in your deck that interact with items is very high, and it's also fundamentally inefficient to interact with one-cost items that replace themselves. So like, even it would have to be like significantly more powerful than like, you know, Friends on the Other Side or the Flaversham combo, because the limitation you jump through of X character has to exist on board, and then if you go X character with Y subtype, like, that's so many more hoops to jump through than something like Amethyst or Sapphire is doing, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, I mean, so basically what this boils down to is, if it's not good under every condition, if it has like certain conditions under which it would be good, it needs to be more powerful than the thing that's like always fine to do, and I guess that's fine.
Yeah,
so
I think also conditions are not created equal as well. So like specifically the Sapphire to Ruby example, where the condition of needing an onboard thing for this card draw to be unlocked, if the onboard condition is an item and you have a low cost item or something like that exists in the game, that's significantly different than, you know, condition is character needs to exist on board, especially character is subtype.
No, that's fair. That is fair for sure. Next comment is from... good.
I'm just surprised. You said like there's 2 options and both of them you think are bad, and the first one was rotation. I mean, I kind of love rotation.
I don't hate rotation at all. I just think that I don't hate rotation. I don't think that rotation is bad. Players don't like rotation.
No, I think players like rotation. They just don't know it.
Yeah, I know.
They just don't know it.
Trust me, that's a whole fucking can of worms to open. But yes, I have my own problems with Eternal card games, and yeah. So we can have the rotation, put down a building for the future, and we can talk about that.
Sure. I mean, we've had the discussion like a few months ago.
Yeah.
I'm down to have it again at some point.
Yeah, so the next comment is from The Ruthless. Coming from Magic, the draft experience is the biggest letdown. I would rather draft with 5 packs and be limited to 2 colors than play just good cards deck. I pray card shops become Pioneers or Ravensburger change pack distribution to help. I don't want to say... Maybe I'm going to speak truthful. In my opinion, I think it's probably gone too far to change pack distribution, or maybe they could just decide to do it. But... like, I still don't think this is what they have in mind, and I don't know if they're gonna get to a point where they're really gonna start taking draft play into consideration.
They will if they think it will sell more packs.
But do you think limited exists? Do you think it will? Do you think in Lorcana it would sell more packs for that?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
I do think it would sell more packs. There is a bit of an equation you run, which is how much does it cost to change the pack distribution, change the way the cards are printed, and fundamentally redesign the way sets are created and designed. Because limited is not just changing pack distribution; it's also changing the entire set design. Like go draft Magic Alpha or something like that, and you'll see that a set that is not designed for limited, the gameplay does not feel like it does for a set that is designed for limited. So there's multiple things going on there, but I do think that yes, it would make more money. It's just the amount of time and energy and also money that would have to go into changing something like that. Will it pay out?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe. Maybe. The one reason why I like that Lorcana doesn't have limited, I love limited. I play Magic limited all the time. I love Cube. I love the fucking Bazaar, which is a limited game. Is the reason why I quit Flesh and Blood is because the Pro Tours and World Championships were forced dual format. So that means half the tournament is constructed and half is limited. I found that very miserable to prepare for because you would work really hard in a constructed deck and then you would go play a draft format, and it's not like Magic Draft. So a draft format in Flesh and Blood, which I thought a lot of them were quite poorly designed at some point, and you would just have this wild card, and it just sucked. It was my least favorite part. And I hope that I never have to play another game that forces me to play dual format tournaments when I don't want to.
Yeah, it is interesting as well, and I know from other games as well, when sets are designed with draft and limited formats in mind, there's also the idea of like reprinting certain cards become a thing if they're like a staple. Like, let's just say this is a basic example, but let's say in the future down the line they do start to really take the drafting and limited stuff into consideration, and they want to reprint. It doesn't have to be the same card, but it could be basically the same effect. Reprint Friends on either side. Maybe not Friends, because Friends is quite powerful, but a similar type of card because it just works really well within said draft pool. Like, that's common in other card games, right?
I think that would be great in Lorcana too. You reprint it with new art. I love that.
Mm-hmm.
I love that there's alternative to cards. I think you look at a Lorcana set, 80 to 90% of it is just bulk garbage. So, I mean, if we're reprinting powerful cards that makes them cheaper and people can have alternative arts that they like to play with, I don't see how any of that is a downside.
Yeah, and that is also probably more money.
They currently
as well.
make tutus with like different fucking flavor text. It's like whatever, you know. If they reprint Friends on the other side, it's all good for me.
The next comment is in relation to what Brendan talked a lot about last week, which was locations for certain events. So, Hosler Fam says, when we went to Atlanta DLC, our car got broken into. If another DLC is going to be hosted there, not sure we will go. Worst experience and traumatizing for the kids for sure. So, Moyen, you missed out on this, but Brendan was talking about... Did you say it wasn't Worlds of Flesh and Blood? It was a big event for Flesh and Blood,
right? Yeah, it was
right?
Worlds.
It was Worlds. Yeah, it was Worlds,
well, yeah, the core of my argument was that... So Atlanta's actually kind of... I don't know. I always hesitate to say this because it's, potentially highly offensive to people that live in these locations or don't believe the same thing that I do. But I would say in general, some locations have a reputation for being unsafe. And my takeaway from being on the Flesh and Blood Pro Tour for 3 years is that, yes, That's true. But also there was the worst locations we went to by far were not the ones that had that kind of reputation. And every single time we went to California, it was really, really, really bad. Like I was on the casting side and I was in the World Championship cast being like, yeah, this player was able to get a new deck because they got mugged twice and they lost their deck twice or something. It was just ridiculous. Like we had game devs that got robbed at like, I can't say at gunpoint, but at weapon point like twice. It's like, it was just so ridiculous. Obviously, it's all location too. So you can be in Atlanta and be in the right area. You can be in Seattle and be in the wrong area. That's how American cities work.
Yeah, Moyen definitely can be in the wrong area. Yeah. And our last comment is just it's from our Discord server. So it's from Machiavelli. They say, hey Podcana, I love your content. It's a must watch every week. I saw Zan's podcast where they talked about playing best of one in DLC when it comes to the rounds where you need to win and you have a chance to lose out. What's your take on this? I know Moyen's not a fan of dice roll, which is illegal, but is this also in the grey zone? You play best of 2 tournaments, so is it in the right or wrong to discuss with your opponent before the game starts? So Moyen, I think you've answered this multiple times, but I'll let you take this one again.
Sure. Yeah, but so dice rolling is not in the grey. All right. They say it's illegal, and then I ask, okay, is this also in the grey zone? No, dice rolling is not in the grey zone. It's like illegal.
It is illegal. Yeah.
But yeah, so you have to be careful in how you go about it. But to an extent, you're very much allowed to tell your opponent or to discuss this with your opponent. You can't ask them to concede if they lose game 1. You can't ask, do you want to play best of 1, because that like kind of implicates, okay, whoever loses concedes. All you can do is you say, if I lose game 1, I will concede game 2. And then you hope your opponent repeats that. And then you kind of have this like gentleman's agreement where it's better for the both of you.
That's actually probably the best way to say it, is for one person to say, if I lose game 1, I will concede. Because ultimately...
Yeah.
What a fucking garbage system. You just have like... You have to be so in tune with like the domain knowledge of playing high-level tournaments, the community, the current state of the rules, and all this other bullshit to correctly navigate the final Swiss rounds of a tournament. Because it's always the same thing. Flesh and Blood has gone through many iterations of these rules. I'm sure Magic has. The good players, the seasoned players, know how to game the system and get an edge as much as possible. And then the new players, or the inexperienced, the novice TCG players, are the ones that usually get punished by this. What's funny is that it's actually, I feel like more often than not, it actually doesn't even punish the bad actors. It just ends up punishing the noobs, which is like so antithetical to Lorcana's entire like pitch.
Yeah, I mean, I think it also, okay, for it to punish the bad actors, the noob needs to know the rules, right? I think the bad actors will.
But the noob is a noob, so they might not.
They might still know the rules.
Okay.
I mean, that's.
But they don't know how to. They don't know political talk though.
So like, if their opponent's like
between
like rules and the political talk, yeah.
So like, if you're a noob, you know the rules. You're like, hey, there's no dice rolling, or like you kind of know them, and your opponent's like, if I lose game 1, I will concede, and you're like, okay, so does that mean that I should do the same thing? Or like, is this an agreement? And it's like, boom, DQ.
I understand that. Yeah, like if I'm after making it to this stage of the thing, and you say this to me, Moyen, and I've never heard of this or done, I would probably react at what Brendan just said. I was like, okay, so am I doing the same? What does this imply? DQ or judge?
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
But no, I don't think you get DQ'd for that. Then your opponent just says, I can't comment on that, and then either you say it or you don't.
But they will comment on it, no?
Yeah, I would just like raise my hand, say my opponent is now offering. Could you imagine if you angle shot somebody like that?
Oh my god.
No, I mean then I mean you can't. I don't think you can do that just based on then like asking that.
Yeah. I don't know.
Also,
it just seems like people with bad intentions are the ones that are going to. They will educate themselves on the rules. They will be more sensitive to it because they know the rules exist and their whole intention is to subvert the rules. So therefore, they will exploit the system to the highest extent. Where the people with, not all of the people, but there is a large portion of people with good intentions that are ignorant of the rules because the rules are nuanced and I mean, why the fuck would you know this if you're just coming here to play a fun game? And they're the ones that will get punished by something like this. I don't think the rules shouldn't exist because they do stop people from doing like very BS stuff, but I just think it's a bad system. Okay,
but I think we have to be careful about it, right? It's like, so if it's a bad system, what do you propose?
Well, I don't know. I don't have a solution because I don't know. That's a tough answer. So, like, what solution do you create that doesn't create these, like, bullshit situations where people basically with more political knowledge than the other people, which is, like, some meta knowledge that has nothing to do with the game, don't get an edge, and a system that also doesn't punish people that are ignorant of the rules. And this is, like, this isn't the rules of, like, you know, don't pick up your ink. This is, like, some weird thing that kind of changes all the time. I
don't think it's possible to protect people that are ignorant of the rules, because, like, if you don't know the rules, then how that's what you have to do to protect yourself.
But this stuff isn't in the rules that we're talking about. The whole thing of like, I can say this to my opponent. You know what I mean? Like, that's not in the rules somewhere, right?
No, what is in the rules is you can't ask for your opponent for concession, which is, I think, a good rule. What is in the rules is, like, what else is... What's the other thing? It's like, okay, you cannot ask your opponent for a concession, and the other thing is you can concede at any time you want. The second part, like without really any reason. I think that second part is the one I don't like. For example, this would date back to me playing like online card games in Hearthstone. You have to play with the intent to win at all times. If you concede in like a winning spot, that is win trading. No matter if there was any incentive, like if you got anything for that or not, you couldn't concede. You couldn't concede at the middle of the game when it was a completely open game. We don't have that in physical card games, so I think that's where the issue lies. But I don't think we can.
I think that's a really bad rule.
I mean, I think that rule is. I don't know if it's enforceable in physical TCGs.
Yeah,
I think that rule existing is like.
A winning board state is also subjective. That's like a crazy. In my opinion, I know that there's
no. Okay, but what? So basically, if you concede like turn 2, and nothing even happened, do you not think that should be punishable?
Yeah, but you don't think that you could make. So you could not make an objective. You could not make an objective argument to me, saying that I was in a not losing position, because I could just come back and say, you know, I mapped out the turns this way, and that way, or I've mapped it out in my head, and I came to the conclusion that I was in a losing position. So what are you going to be like,
that's
thought
fair
criming these people?
And you could be like, yeah. So no, you could think that I'm in a winning position, but then you could say, like, my argument to conceding on turn 2 could be like, yeah, I inked the wrong card. It's gonna throw my whole game.
I realized I was 30%. I only have X more time to play, or I value.
Yeah, that doesn't exist in Hearthstone. We had infinite time to finish the round.
Yeah, but it could also be like percent time to, I don't know.
No.
Do something outside of the game that you need to do. There's like a million reasons. The thing is, at the end of the day, I think that board states are subjective. They're not objective.
Sure. I mean, it's more like you couldn't concede from a like clearly winning position, right? And
but clearly doesn't exist. That's
no, it exists.
That's an agreed upon reality that is completely subjective. There is no objective. There's no objectivity to that.
No, I mean, I think it's so I guess there's like, I'm not talking about corner cut cases where like you think you're in a bad position and maybe another player would play it out because they see the 1%er and you don't see it. I'm talking about like just conceding where under like in your right mind, if you know the game you're playing, like there's no reason for you to concede that game if like you know you have the time and everything.
Yeah, so, I mean we won't stay on too long. Okay. But you said a perfect thing. You said in your right mind.
Right. Sure. I'm not saying. I'm not even arguing that is a rule we should have in physical TCGs. I think it worked very well in Hearthstone. I think I like that it was there. I think that rule not existing is the reason why we have these weird situations, because if you can concede in any position without any reasoning, then you can also like kind of work around that and have these weird conversations where in the end of them one of the players concedes.
If that rule was in place, then we couldn't do what we just discussed, where you can say,
you couldn't concede game 2 before you even started. That would be impossible.
Yeah. But yeah, because if you talk about the whole thing of like, oh well, I've just won a game and now I'm gonna concede. I've won a game and now I'm going to concede. You know what I mean? Like, it's, yeah.
I would feel very comfortable conceding from a favorable position and then arguing that it was unfavorable at any given time. I think that's like an insane rule. Like, I think it's just totally subjective. Like, yes, we can parse that, we can all agree that something looks favorable or not favorable, but I think there's no objectivity into that. It's just like, it's completely subjective.
Yeah, I don't agree, but it's funny.
Yeah. Interesting discussion though, honestly, because it all does come back to, I think you said it perfectly, Brendan, of that example. Like, it's this whole kind of political talk. If a player who doesn't know about all of these weird things gets to that position, is the opponent just says, "Oh, I'll concede if I lose game one."
Yeah,
it's just.
I think Moyen made the best point though, which is how would you change it or how would you fix it?
Yeah, exactly.
It's a hard thing to engineer out of a system.
Mm-hmm.
I find that the more nuanced it gets, the more it hurts the person that they're not trying to hurt. And you can take the stance that they should just know the rules or they should know all these things, but I've seen it time and time again. I watched somebody get DQ'd out of a top 8 because they didn't know how to correctly politically talk at a Flesh and Blood World Championship. Nobody talks about that, by the way, because they didn't say it on stream. They fucking swept it under the rug because they were embarrassed. It was also the only Brazilian player that was like in contention for, I think, like top 16 at that point. He was about to make top 8, first Brazilian top 8 of Flesh and Blood ever. Everybody was hyped for it. They're all talking about it on stream. And then he gets DQ'd because he's sitting on a feature match table. His opponent asked him a question. He answered the wrong way.
Yeah.
Okay.
Boom. Gone.
So to me, what this boils down to is, right, I think in an ideal world, maybe I would like that one rule that we talked about, but we've agreed, like, okay, it's not really realistic. So now we have two things, right? One, if conceding is, like, if conceding your game should be possible without any reason at all times. Right, that's one. Mm-hmm. And then 2, I don't think you should be allowed to pressure your opponent into a concession, right? I've seen these conversations before. Someone loses game 1 and then the opponent, like, kind of makes them feel like they're a bad human for wanting to play the second game. And then at the end of that they concede. That shouldn't be a thing either. So now we have it. Okay, you can concede all the times, but you can't ask for your opponent to concede. So with both of these things in place, I don't know if there's a workaround for the problem that you're having.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I also think that you can end with, like, you can look at the system and say, even if a system is, I can come on here and say it's bad, and I can say it's bad because of this, and this, but if there's not a better option, then, I mean, it just is what it is. I just think it's kind of funny because if you look at the macro strategy behind Lorcana as a game, but also these conventions, like what audience are trying to appeal to, this is very incongruent with that strategy, in my opinion. But I don't know if there's anything they could do about it.
I think you said it best there. I think if it might seem really bad as much as we're talking about it and stuff like that, because we're pointing out the bad, but like there may not be a better way. You know what I mean? Yeah. And if there is, there's someone that's gotta be way smarter, well, at least than me, to figure it out. You know?
Yeah. So in general, if we find something better, I'm all for it. To me, I guess in the end, people, I already see it. It's like, okay, in best of 3, this would never happen. I really think 2-1 format has a bunch of advantages that I'm not willing to give up. I think right now, I haven't heard anyone like talk about a better system.
Yeah, 2-game format's really funny. Just quickly, I feel like it's a bit of a bell curve. Like, people start out at the bottom and they're like, fuck this. Yeah. And then they get to like this top end. Well, maybe it's not a bell curve because they get to this top end, they're like, oh, it's okay. And then sometimes I think they come out the other end where they also don't like it. But most notably, I see people that come into Lorcana from another game, not used to 2-game format, have a poor performance, complain about it and blame the 2-game format, and then they either leave the game or eventually come around to it. But I saw a lot of tweets this weekend from players that were newer to Lorcana coming from other games I followed on Twitter that were very unhappy with 2-game format.
Yeah, and it's the weirdest thing in the world to me. In One Piece, I've played like 10 to 12 rounds, best of 1 with a tie roll. Now we have like 18 games. 9 of them you get to go first, 9 of them you get to go second. Okay, the bonus point, as this port, we've never been a fan of it. We've criticized it when it came out, when it was still rated much more than a third.
Oh yeah.
Double.
Yeah. No, but 3 times as much, right?
Was it
like
3
rated
times?
I think
as
it was
much as
3
a
times
game.
as much. Yeah.
Yeah. It was like 1-1-3.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, if why am I losing all my points today? Where was I?
Best of 2.
One
Piece
best of
going
3.
first.
Yeah,
Die
okay.
rolls.
Right. Okay. So the 2 round, and then people actually play like these 18 games, and they're like, yeah, but I only lost because it's 2 round format, and it doesn't forgive me a bad draw. So like, what? So you just what's the argument there? Do you think against everyone that you split against, you would have won game 3? Do you want to ask your opponent if they like feel the same, or if they not feel the same way about it? And if it wasn't like whoever was going to go first in that game 3 might have had the better chance to actually get that game 3. So okay, if the one thing we can, I think, usually agree on is more games usually is better at finding out at like putting the best players at the top.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think, I think sometimes the mistake people make is like they think, okay, 9 rounds best of 3 would be better than 9 rounds best of 2. But I don't think those two are comparable, because 9 rounds best of 3 should have more time, significantly more time. And if it just has like the slight bit of more time, and then it incentivizes slow play at all times, and calling people out for slow play when they're like slightly overdoing it, I think that's worse. So I
do hate that. Yeah, that is worse.
Yeah, so I guess none of these issues are without flaws, but I think 2 on form is just pretty good.
Just to hit on a point that we talked about a lot, but I do hope that if anybody listens to this and they get past all the expletives and they work for Ravensburg, they'll take this as feedback. Please, in my opinion, add day 2 Swiss. And it's actually not for reduction of variance, although it would have that. It's because people come to these tournaments to game, and the current system is so it is so opposite of that. Like, just having 64 players make it to day 2, that sucks from a 2,000 player tournament. And they might understand that. You know, these tournaments were not originally designed to maybe have that many players. But, yeah, that sucks. And also, I think that the single limb is, before top 8, and I know other games do it, is not great as well. Because, like, Moyen, you had a great run. You go to day 2, you lose round 1. Like, that could have been top 8. But I feel like it's much more like if you're traveling across the world to play competitive Lorcana, not to play fucking side events, you would like to be playing Swiss on day 2 to, I don't know, just play more games. And the fact that only 64 people get to participate in that, I think is also terrible.
I'm not going to put my performance on, like,
it's not about your performance. It's more about the chance to game. Like, you traveled across the world to play competitive Lorcana, not play side events.
I just meant for like that part of the point. Like I got in on a super high seed. I had very good chances to make it a lot further on a high seed. It was my mistake. I didn't. And I think the best point you make is like, okay, if you're traveling that far, you want to play more games that actually matter. I think right now the problem is kind of hidden because people are still, to an extent, they're still content just grinding side events day 2. But that might change, and as soon as that changes, maybe
I don't know. And again, it's hard to equate how much of the audience is happy with that and isn't happy with that, because I know a lot of people that are
playing it a lot.
Yeah, well, I know a lot of people that aren't happy with that. But then it also comes down to money for these companies as well, because like they're gonna make more money doing this stuff with the side events. I'm not saying, like you said, Brandon, I'm not saying like completely get rid of the side events, because side events are for some people and some people really enjoy the side events.
Some people go there for side events. Don't get me wrong. There's like casual people that show up, whether they're family, friends, spouses, or they're just casuals and they show up for side. I'm not saying get rid of that, but I just think that the point of a DLC, in my opinion, if you're traveling to play competitively, is not, hey, I play competitively day 1 and then maybe I'm one of the 2-3% of people to make it to day 2. It's like you want to go play competitive Lorcana, not side event Lorcana. Okay, there was a band-aid on this issue because the EV for side events is very high. That will change. And
I still think it's changed already, but this is just my opinion. And also,
but people don't complain about it enough.
and also, I mean, I am really gonna say this because I know it's different parts of the world and different parts of stuff, but what we had in Birmingham for side events was absolute bullshit. was absolute. It was so bad in my opinion. And every time I look at an NA event, and I know it's different. I don't want to say if it's different, just the tournament organizers or currency, whatever. But looking at every single NA event, side events have been cheaper, side events have been cooler, side events have been better. That doesn't change the fact that some people still don't want to play side events. But I'm not going to lie, if side events are cheaper in general, or there are cooler side events, like if there was more, I don't know, I'm not going to say like you can have like a cube side event, but Moyen, like what we did day 2 of Birmingham was way more fun. It was probably the most fun I had the entire weekend, was doing that type of stuff, doing creative stuff, doing fun stuff. So I think if they try and think about more creative stuff to do in these side events, similar to how we had the 2v2 teams in Lille, I think it would be way more fun in my opinion.
Yeah, real TCG players don't play side events when they get knocked out of a tournament. They play money drafts, which is not really a thing in Lorcana, but that's usually what you do.
But there's
play
still
team
cool
drafts,
stuff that's what I'm saying. When like we don't want to play side events, so myself and Moyen and a few others, we decided to do something that we would actually think is going to be fun and something different, rather than the same stuff when we're forking over so much money for side events that aren't fun, are boring. And again, there are people that like this type of stuff. I understand that you can get cool prize tickets and stuff like that. But if side events are interesting formats, are different, are unique, at least more people would try them out, in my opinion, as they're also a little bit more reasonably priced. But that's just my opinion.
Yeah, honestly, I think that they should do whatever the hell they want to do with side events, because I don't really care about them, and I think a lot of people that play the DLCs might not 1-2 years down the line, which is fine. They're for a specific audience. But if we're traveling and paying a bunch of money to play a competitive tournament, please change the structure so that we can play more competitive Lorcana.
Yeah, that's the main message I want to get across. Yeah, for sure. All right, cool. So with that, yeah, we've been talking about DLC Seattle. Moyen, Brennan, if you guys want to talk about a few more stories, go for it.
I just want Moyen to talk about his list, why he chose it, where he thinks, because he's still tooting his horn. You know, we're playing Bazaar, and he's like, I think I had the best deck in the format. And I just want to hear about why he chose the list, how he ended up on it, and why he thinks it might, be the sleeper best deck of the format. And I think we got to wrap up there. I mean, okay. So if you want the headlines from Seattle, Emerald Steel won, and pretty impressive performance, even off the back of Vegas, so people knew it was the second most represented deck after being like the 5th most represented deck. So it won despite. And yeah, overall the metagame was pretty much exactly what we predicted on the podcast, and it's pretty much what everybody predicted as well. It's what they expected. There was an unusual amount of Amethyst Amber. I don't know how. There was like a lot, like a statistically significant amount of it, but nevertheless, yeah, the tournament was ultimately won by Emerald Steel. So that was the big takeaway, and that's the sunset on set 5 before we go to set 6. Okay, Moyen, pitch us on the no-wheel blue steel best deck in the format.
Yeah, so again, the reason why I had to try it out again, because Sky kept bugging me about how insane it is.
Let's get the backdrop lore too. So you flew out to Seattle before the tournament, significantly before.
Yeah. So okay. So yeah, even before we flew out, though, we of course practiced a lot, and we especially Red Blue against that deck, because he said like, oh no, that matchup's fine. But then I was playing like 4 Alpha Algo, sometimes 3 to 4 B prep lists. The matchup wasn't fine for him at all. But the deck seemed still decently powerful. I could see how you get close matchup against like maybe Red Blue lists that are a little bit lighter on Alpha Algo, by just focusing a bit more on like aerial and aerial Pete and dimes. It had a very good win condition. On top of that, it doesn't lose Triper aggro whatsoever. Can just fend off aggro decks pretty easily. Might even have a slightly... So I think Red Blue has a good matchup against Emerald Steel, but I think Sapphire Steel's matchup is probably even better than that. And then also, Red Purple went through this development where now, because they wanted to... Like, people don't like not playing Red Purple players, they want to play Red Purple. So now Emerald Steel's in the meta, they don't switch the deck, no. They play Finders Keepers to adjust it, which, okay, that helps against Emerald Steel. But suddenly...
That card looked so bad this weekend on any not Emerald Steel matchup. I don't know how you feel about the card in general, but holy crap, that card looks terrible sometimes.
I think I mean it's a good tech card. I don't think you want to play too many of them.
How good is it? How good is it? Because it actually felt a little copium, to be honest. Like, I saw it against Emerald Steel. We're like, yeah, sometimes they get down to one card in hand. But like sometimes they get down to like 2 cards in hand. Their opponent beats them, makes them discard, and then also makes them discard the next turn. And it's just like they just got like time walk 2 turns in a row, and they couldn't cast a thing.
That can happen, but I think it still helps in that matchup. The problem is you can't just, if you build your entire deck now as this like hyper control deck, I don't think that works, because you can, as red purple, you do not control anything what Sapphire does if you don't pressure them. If you don't pressure Sapphire Steel or red blue, they will win before you get to even play all of the cards that Finders Keepers to you. So the same argument kind of went for red blue. I think red blue also got better as people started playing Finders Keepers. I played red blue in the side event before to out of a few red purples and went like top 16 in the side event the day before with red blue, but also I just didn't want people to know the deck I'm playing. I guess Mulligan wise Sapphire Steel, red blue, they're kind of same, but with Sapphire Steel against like the Finders Keepers, especially the non-Flynn versions, that was very easily 2-0-able. And yeah, so the weaknesses of the deck, they weren't that weak. I think it's like specific red blue builds where you aren't super great against, which aren't super common. And like Amber Steel can be tricky, of course, but now I think the deck was still lacking in the Ruby department. So the thing that really pushed the deck over the top for me was playing around with Chicha as the 2-drop. So in the end, we've cutted some of the other 2-drops because we had like a million 2-drops in deck when you do play Chicha. But opening Chicha Quill on the play against any deck was like absolutely insane. Suddenly you can go like Chicha Quill, Tink, Tamator. You can even just skip the Flower Charm, go full tempo. A very, very common curve of the deck is you go 2-drop Quill, Flower Charm and a 2-drop. So Chicha before that Flower Charm can fit in very well. If you don't have the Flower Charm off in your vision, the deck still requires lots of work on that you need to get. Like when I first started playing it, I was like, okay, I want Quill so often we can just cut the Mickey, but then do like more of the math and you kind of just can't cut the Mickey. And also on Uninkables, it's very, very tight and you need to be very careful of the spots that you choose. You still need, like, Pete isn't great in the deck. It's like a 10 ink, 11 ink card, but in some matchups, you just get to that point, and then if you get to every Pete, it kind of locks out the game. In the event itself, against Red Blue, I went 4-0. Then after the event, I've had some players not trust me that the Red Blue matchup's fine. I was like, no, I really think it's fine. So I played against Zan a bit in the restaurant, but then the food came. He wanted to know more. Then I played against Terrence on where he was playing like 2 Alphalgo 2B prep version. I was like, okay, I think that I should be chilling. We played 6 games. I won 5 of them after the event. So I didn't engage in side events. I just wanted to.
Again, yep.
Didn't.
I'm saying another point of players not engaging in side events. But yeah, go ahead.
No, but I mean, the entire hall was full of people playing side events, which is why I think I guess for now they work. But I just wanted to get to talk to the American players, see who doesn't have an ego, see who is like curious and willing to learn, and who just wants to find out some stuff with me. And yeah.
How was the trip overall? Sorry to interrupt you, Moyen, because like I said, from what you told me, it seemed very positive. My one trip to NA to the Toronto event was really good. It was probably one of my favorite DLCs I've ever been to. So from what I heard, it was really, really positive from what you said, right?
Yeah, I mean, I guess America's always an experience with like tipping on top, tax on top, like this weird grid. Every street kind of looks the same.
Yeah.
But in general, the experience was great. I think I definitely had to go to one of these events, just to meet with everyone from over there. And now that I've played, for my like biased 9-round experience, not singling out anyone, I think the level of play was just not comparable to Europe. So I wish I could have played more American events. I think might be a little. I mean, I might be wrong. Maybe it was just the variance of my opponents, but I think it's a little bit easier to make top cut over there. Regarding
that's because in Europe, if you play card games, you got to be a fucking nerd. Because Europe is so beautiful, like there's so many things to do. It's like, who plays card games? You can go see old architecture. You can go to like a different country, new culture, new experience. Like, dude, you got to be a weirdo to play. No, I'm kidding, but I don't know. European card gamers are known. Like, I know that I've heard the base level on pretty much. This has been consistent card games play. The base level's always been higher in Europe. At the same time, like usually the first World Championship and Pro Tours are dominated by European players.
Yeah.
And then it switches around, but yeah.
So in general, I think, especially like Zan and Zach were the ones I was really vibing with because they were like willing to learn at all times. They were knowledgeable about what they knew and what they didn't know. They didn't have an ego. So I loved talking to them, and I can see myself doing like more prep work and stuff with them in the future.
They are some of my favorite people I've interacted with within the Lorcana community. By a mile. Zach is an incredibly talented player. Like you said, always open to learning, always willing to learn. And Zan as well. I briefly got to chat to Zan in Toronto, and what I love about them especially is exactly what you said, Moyen, right? Like even after coming off an event, if they did great or if they did bad, they're always willing to learn, always wanting to kind of know more, test more. It's a great passion that they have for the game, but also they don't have an ego, which is a big thing in card games. They are very humble. They listen to feedback, educate people on their thoughts, but then are also open to stuff. So yeah, huge shout out to them. Not gonna lie, a little bit scared to face them in the in the NA versus EU event, but we'll tackle that when it comes to it.
Yeah, I might have. I think I might have been successful in convincing Zan to play the European LCQ if he gets the ticket. So that would be fun too.
Yeah.
So I think Sapphire Steel. I don't. On the list, there's maybe like some minor points you could talk about. It's like, do you play 3 aerial, 1 Hades, or like 2 aerial, 2 Hades? Do you want to go maybe 2 aerial, 1 Hades, even play another, develop your brain, go down another Inkable? But if I was to play the event next week, I would probably bring the same list. I'm very, very happy with.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, right now the actual list doesn't really matter. Like the 1 or 2 of here or there, because set 6 is coming out. It's more the ethos behind it and how you looked at the metagame and sort of made the decision from there, and how you're able to exploit the metagame and the what went on your head behind that, like the process, because that's the thing you can take away and repeat. Where it's like, yeah, is it 3 Chicha or 4?
Yeah.
Or like, is it one of this tech card or one of that? It's like, I mean, that's going to change both tournament to tournament, but also very likely to happen when Sec 6 comes out.
Yeah, I guess one interesting thing just about how I built that deck is like how much math went into it. The old school math was like, okay, how much ink do you draw until like that turn? Like, do you draw enough inkables with this many uninkables and stuff? But for me, it was different. It was so the math, a lot of the math that went into maybe figuring out the counts in this deck was finding a 2-drop. Let's talk about the ramp first. Okay, I need ramp on 3. Quill's much better than Mickey. What's my chances to find ramp on 3? To find the Quill on 3? What's my chances to find ramp on 3 if I hard mulligan for ramp? But there was a bunch of matchups where Mickey on 3 wouldn't be good enough. So in some matchups I mulligan Mickey away. What's the chance to find like ramp on 3, which could still be Mickey if I'm not even keeping the Mickey. On top of that, regarding inkables, if I'm on the player on the draw with how many cards I'm keeping generally in my mulligan, until my turn 3, how often will I draw 3 ink so that I'm not forced to ink the 1 quill that I kept? How often do I get to only keep 1 inkable in hand that's except the quill. So maybe I'm open like quill Tink or quill Flaversham. How often would I be forced to ink the Flaversham just to get to 3 ink?
Wow, that's
end,
a lot of math. Yeah. Even just hearing your thoughts on that. Yeah, wow.
So a lot of the time on preparing in Seattle, I was just chilling I was doing the preparation and math with Speci and LGS. Most of the others we came with, they cared about exploring. It was kind of cringe. But I guess some people care about that.
So what Brendan said, we're the weirdos that, we're in a beautiful new country. Let's go and play cards.
I didn't get to see too much of it.
I say it all the time. All the time my parents were like, oh, yes, so you've been to Italy this week. What did you see? I saw a hotel, an airport, and a convention center. That's what I saw.
Yeah, I do that in the U.S. I don't do that in, like, other places. That's because, I don't know. I'm on the other side of it now where I'm just kind of going in and out. But I do highly recommend that if you are traveling, playing card games in your youth, that you take time to actually go see stuff because you will regret it if you do not.
Okay, now
if you're the person eating Chick-fil-A in the hotel, going from the hotel to the convention center, you're going to look back and regret that.
I've been playing now for like 6-7 years. Don't regret anything. Didn't see any of the big cities I've been to. I don't
care.
You're
like 40 and you're an uncle and they're like, Moyen, what'd you do with your life? You're like, I ate McDonald's and sat in a hotel room.
No, that's not what I'm telling. I'll tell, I traveled the world multiple times a year. I competed at these like big events, did really well. I don't have to tell them that I didn't see anything.
Didn't you go to China, Moyen, for Hearthstone? How much of China did you see?
Well, I saw the hotel and one restaurant like near the street.
Yeah.
We had restaurants in the hotel, so I didn't really need to leave it. Also, it was scary there. It was a big city.
They also don't speak English. Generally.
Yeah, and there's guards everywhere.
Really?
And everything's banned. Now in the hotel there was like armed guards just standing near the restroom and everything. I was very careful.
Near the restroom? What?
Yeah, it's everywhere. Okay. So basically, in the end, if I'm like on the play and I wanna not have to ink an inkable in hand, if I want to quill on 3, like the difference between 17 or 18 inkables was like a difference of 8 or 10% of that happening. So and then that just doing that math is not enough. Now it's like where the more difficult thing comes in, which is this extra uninkable in your deck worth if that's the sacrifice you're making? And then the other big one was playing a 2-drop on 2. Okay, I mean there's 2 more big ones that I can just quickly go over. It's playing a 2-drop on 2 is pretty good, right? You want to be playing a 2-drop on 2, but you also want to ramp on 3. Sometimes you would not keep a 2-drop if like everything else missing. If let's say you're still missing an item to play on 1, ramp on 3, you don't have the Flaversham, or maybe a matchup where you need the Tink. Like, there's a bunch of stuff still missing. In the end, we had, at points we had 10 2-drops, in the end we had 9. Sometimes you just throw the 2-drop away and say, okay, I prioritize finding the other stuff I need, and I'm still likely enough to have something to do on 2, and if I don't, it's not the end of the world. So basically, now, if I'm mulliganing a 2-drop away, how likely am I still to find a 2-drop in my opening hand? Or also the other one was, how often should you actually keep the 1-drop item? Because especially, like, depending on how many cards you're throwing away, if you're throwing lots of cards away with 8 1-cost items in your hand, I think we were nearing like 70-ish, it was around 70-ish% to still find a 1-drop item. So now, is it worth to see 1 extra card 70% of the time and still have that item turn 1? Or is that failure rate of 30% of the time not having an item turn 1, is that really worth it? So just for that, all of these like decisions and math, they would still be important every set. It's just the decision might be a different one. Maybe it's not about do you get ink with quill turn 3. It's maybe like the breakpoints will be different, but I think having a basic understanding of math is really, really helpful in deck building. But then also applying that and comparing the percentages to what would that mean for your deck if you were to play an extra inkable or an extra uninkable.
Yeah, or you could play 61 cards and blame the 2-game format.
Yeah, that's the other thing. We now, so I don't know if you guys have seen, we now have this ELO spreadsheet that someone made.
Yeah.
I'm not entirely sure on all their metrics. I'm like place 11 now, and I think two things. Over the course of these 5 tournaments, like if you take all of them as all, I think this one was kind of lucky. I think over the last 5 tournaments, I don't think I was like for my biased perception of my draws, I don't think I was like incredibly lucky. And I don't think I played exceptionally well. I played well most of the tournaments, and like I probably played well enough, right? But I think I can play better than that, and I can get luckier than that. It's like I think what I'm getting towards is if you prep well, you play well, and you're not like insanely unlucky. And I know that's the excuse most are going to take. You will do well in 2-round format. The format is not what's holding you back.
Yeah, it's your card count. We got to wrap it up there because I need to go back to work.
Yep.
Fuck.
All
Sucks.
good. All right.
Sucks. Friday.
Yeah, but don't worry.
But then the Bazaar after. We have been playing a lot of Bazaar. Pretty sure I'm ahead of the metagame right now. I'm just, I'm property abusing on Pygmalion.
So you need to finish the podcast, but you have time for the bazaar.
No, I'm saying
cannot.
after work. What are you talking about, bro? That's how this works.
Okay.
After. And I got a whole weekend ahead of me. I got my whole life ahead of me, actually. Rank 1 Bazaar. You know Pokemon whatever came
Pokemon
out?
Pocket, yeah.
Yeah.
Crazy week.
Okay,
for
hot
card
take.
games.
That game looks like a waste of time because there's no ranked. Like, if you just queue... I'm not saying that you have to have ranked or it matters. It's just like, if you're just queuing into random opponents, how is that? That's got to be kind of boring eventually, right?
I've heard some good things about the game. I myself do not have the time to pick it up, and I just have I don't have enough time of the day. Like between this week and in general, it's great to be a card gamer because there's so much choice, but there's also so much choice, which is also a problem, right? It is kind of a problem.
All of you can vote with your wallets and vote against Marvel Snap because fuck that industry precedent. I'm so over that.
Yeah, I think we've all officially
everybody's officially off Snap.
Off Snap, yeah.
Don't let companies get away with that. Never play games like that again. Like, ugh, it just annoys me. Like now that I look back, I'm like, there's no way I could ever go back to that game. Now we've had good games come out for free.
The weirdest thing for me is if I wanted to just have like a safe game to do content with that I knew would like do fine, could just do Snap again, but I really don't want to.
Oh, no. I also disagree with that. I was on that content train, and I know some content people that still do decent numbers that absolutely despise the game. Like it's and there's burnout and there's normal stuff with games, but yeah, listen, we'll probably talk about that at the end of another podcast. So for those of you who listened, thank you so much for sticking with us. If you guys want to support the podcast, the number one thing that you guys can do is leave us a comment or leave us a review rather on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Also comment on the video, like the video, sub to the channel. That really helps us out. There's a video version of this available over at youtube.com/@Podcana podcast, and the Twitters are @Kawatech_CG, @MoyenHS, and @BrendanAPG. Thank you so much for watching, and catch you guys in the next one.